Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Griffin, and I'm a filmmaker based out of Orange County, California. And today we're going to be taking a look at what goes in a typical gear bag for a solo operator documentary style shoot. We're actually sending out a different shooter from our team, so it's not going to be me shooting on this specific shoot. I will be shooting later in the documentary series, but just not for the first day because I'm actually busy finishing an edit. And I was putting all the things in there that I kind of know based on from my experience that I really like to shoot with. So I figured I would show you guys what goes in that typical kit. Granted, it changes for every single shoot, and it depends on like what you're shooting. This specific docuseries is based on a fighter, and he just got out of surgery, and he's preparing sort of for his next professional boxing fight. So, I'm pretty familiar with this style of shooting. I've done a couple of documentaries that are on this exact type of thing. So these are the lenses and the camera that I found to be most useful. Okay, so the first thing in the kit is the Canon C200. This is really kind of the main camera I typically find myself using for documentary style shooting. A couple things I really like about it are it's got the built-in ND filters. So that's really nice because a lot of times when you're shooting, you're sort of going from like indoors to outdoors, and then you're back indoors. That type of shooting would make it really difficult if you didn't have built-in ND filters. Even if you're using a variable ND filter, I know I mentioned it before in some of my other videos, but built-in ND filters have a lot of benefits over variable ND filters. Typically, they don't really have any effect on the image quality, so that's really nice for this style of shooting. Another thing I like about this camera is I've got it rigged out with two monitors, so when I power this on, and then I power the monitor on, you can kind of see, I'll let that power up, it takes a second. But what I do is I actually keep the top monitor here. I keep this one clean so I can just really have a nice clean look at what my image is going to look like. And then this one down here, what I do is I actually have it set for all my menus and my frame rate and all that kind of stuff. So on this one, you can see the audio, you can see the frame rate, you can see your white balance, and basically all the things that you're going to need to see. Also, you can see how much time you've got left on the card. So the way I actually have this camera rigged out is it is the stock top handle, which I kind of like. And then I have like a little drop down bracket from SmallRig. And this is nice because it allows the screen to just sort of tilt back and forth, but it eliminates the problem of having unlevel horizons. And then the way I have it on the top handle is I've got the Ninja 5 in a SmallRig cage. And it's just a little 2-inch, 15 millimeter rail right here. And then I got a part from SmallRig right here, and then another little NATO to 15 millimeter rail. And so this is really nice. You can kind of just tilt the screen up and down, and then you don't have to worry about unlevel horizons again with this one as well. And I like this a lot better than using something like a Magic Arm, because I find Magic Arms, like you always have to fuss with them when you're shooting. And then if you use this solution, it's actually just a lot smoother and more elegant. So jumping over to the back of the camera, another thing I like about the C200 is it's got these audio dials. So you can, if you want to turn the volume up, you can just turn it up. If you want to turn it down, you just turn it down. You don't have to jump into any menu settings to do that. You can also plug in XLRs to the camera. So it's got two XLRs. What I actually do, I guess we could talk about the audio now, is I'll run the NTG3. This is a Rode NTG3 with a dead cat on it. So this prevents any of that wind noise that you're going to get. And then I run that into channel 1. And then in channel 2, I actually plug in the lav mic. So we're going to have our subject laved up all day. We're just running a single operator for the shoot. So we don't have a sound guy. We don't have anything like that. So that's why, we're going with the onboard audio. Okay, so continuing on the audio section, like I mentioned, we're going to be using a lav mic all day. The one I'm going to be using is the Sennheiser AVX kit. This one's cool. It's really nice because it plugs into the camera. You don't need to put it into a cold shoe. I'll show a clip of that right here in just 1 second. And then I'm going to send backup battery for the receiver, backup battery for the transmitter. The belt packs are pretty nice and small. They're a little bit smaller than the G3s, so that's another reason I kind of like them. It's a digital signal too, so you don't really have to worry about checking which frequency is going to be the best one. It'll actually do that automatically for you. And if you are going from one area to another, it'll auto adjust that for you. So these guys right here are the Rycote undercovers. These little stickies go on the shirt. And then you basically just stick the mic in between there, and then you put the little felt cover over. And what's great about these is you won't actually see the lav in any of the shots, which for me is kind of like an unprofessional look. So that's something I try to avoid. The actual mic that we're using, I believe it's called the MKE2. It's the upgraded one. I have I want to say it's the ME2. I'll put it on the screen if I'm wrong, but this one sounds really nice. I like it. It's got a nice crisp sound, and I feel like it cuts pretty well together with the Rode NTG3. Okay, so in this little kit, we have the Tascam DR10L and an extra AAA battery. This is the stock lav. This one's, it's pretty good. It does a good job. And then this thing, it's really tiny. So this is a good backup audio source. Also, if you're sort of like last minute and there's a second subject there that you want to throw a lav on, this is always a really good option. Okay, so last thing in the kit is a set of headphones. This is just to monitor the audio. You always want to monitor the audio and make sure nothing's going wrong, especially when you're running a lav, because something like always will go wrong. And then you want to make sure you adjust it if you need to. These ones are the SMH1000s. They're pretty good. They're a lot like the Sony MDR7506s. I had those before, and what I like better about these is it's just got a really nice short cable. And this is nice if you're opping the camera yourself. So you can have it's probably about 3 feet, and it's a little bit nicer than the Sony cable that's about maybe 6 feet. So that's nice that you don't have that giant cable to have to worry about. So in terms of lenses, the first lens that I bring, I try to keep it pretty minimal. We've got like 14 lenses in the company that we can use, but what I try to do is I try to just kind of narrow it down to like probably 2 to 3 lenses that I really think I'll use a lot on the shoot, and just bring those ones, because sometimes gear can get a little bit overwhelming and you think you want to bring all these lenses and you've got all these cool ideas, but then it ends up kind of slowing you down when you're shooting. So the first lens, this is sort of a general all-purpose kind of medium to telephoto. This is the 24-105 f4 IS. This lens is great. It's got a nice range all the way from 24 to 105. So this is cool. I mean, it's just sort of like an all-purpose. The one thing this lens is not so great at is low light. So that's kind of where the next lens comes in. Okay, so the next lens is the Sigma 18-35 f1.8. This lens is not stabilized, but it's a little bit wider. One thing I like is when it zooms, it doesn't extend, and it's a 1.8 aperture all the way through. So if you find yourself like indoors, this is a really good lens. If there's slightly less light available, if you don't have time to set a light up, this is going to be a great option for you. So the third lens that I'm setting off for this shoot is the 85mm 1.4 IS. This lens is really cool. It's just such a beautiful lens. Every time you see the images, or I see the images from this lens, I'm always thankful that I brought it. It is a little bit limiting that it's a prime. Typically on a dock shoot, you're not going to bring a prime, but I just really like it that much. And for this shoot, I know that there's not going to be anything that's too far away from our camera operator. If I didn't know exactly what I was going to be shooting, I would probably send the 70-200 in place of this lens. But since I do know what we're going to be shooting, and it's all going to be sort of close proximity, I'm just sending the 85 1.4, like I mentioned, just because it's a super beautiful lens. And then on all my lenses, I've put a black Promus filter. This one's got a 1/4 filter, and then on the 18-35, and then on the 24-105, I put a 1/8. It just kind of softens the image up a little bit. It's nice. I know people like sharp images typically, but I kind of like the opposite. A little more of a filmic look. Looks a little closer to like an Alexa Mini in my opinion, and kind of blooms the highlights out. So that's really nice. Okay, so the next thing going in the kit is the batteries and media. The first battery is the Canon BPA60. This is for the C200. Lasts for about 4 hours. These are great. I just typically send 2 of these out. It's going to last you through a full day of shooting. These next 2 batteries are the Sony NPFs. I think these are the Atomos branded ones. And these 2 plus the one that's in the camera would typically get you through about a full day. And these are for the Ninja 5. And then the third thing here is the CFast cards. So the C200 kind of burns through media. Each one of these 512 gigabyte cards gets you about an hour. And then I typically take that media and transcode it to ProRes 422, which cuts the file size in about half. But I typically tell the operator just to try to keep it on 2 cards if you can. But if you need to, you can use the third as a backup. We're not running any interviews for this day. So it's mostly just like B-roll and pickup shots. So we won't be shooting all that much. So some things I'm not sending on this shoot, just because it's a single operator, I'm not sending a B camera. Typically I find if you bring 2 cameras, I feel like you're going to be like spending a lot of time deciding, wait, should I shoot it on this camera or that camera? And what it does is it kind of slows you down quite a bit. Same thing with the gimbal. If I have 2 operators going, typically I'll send the gimbal, but if it's only a single operator, a lot of times I find the gimbal will slow you down. And same thing with the drone. I love getting the drone shots and love getting the other perspective. And sometimes I'll send it if I feel like there's a really amazing landscape we're going to be at. But most of the time, if it's just going to be a single operator, I try to keep things as simple as possible. So last thing I'm sending is this little aperture light. I don't even know the brand of this one or the model. I think it's the, what is this? ALH198C. I think this is kind of an older one, but it can go from tungsten to daylight. It's got decent output, and you can run it off one of those Sony NPF batteries that I'm sending in the kit. We're probably not going to use this, but it's always good to have just in case you find yourself in a tricky situation and you need to just get a little bit of fill light on the face. And this can mount right up to the cold shoe on the top handle of the C200. So that's always a good option if you're solo opping. Okay, so last thing is the bag for all the stuff. I like to use backpacks instead of Pelican cases. I have Pelican cases and I like them and I use them for a different purpose. But when you're running gun shooting, you want to just be able to slap your bag on the back and take it with you wherever you're going to next. Because a lot of times you're changing locations, and especially if you don't have somebody to help you carry all the gear, you need to be able to move quickly. So this bag is cool because you can actually put the C200 in there almost fully assembled. So you can just open it up. You can see how everything's packed in there. Here I've got the small light, the media, headphones, 2 lenses, got the monitor, the stock monitor from the C200 that I have to put in there. The camera packs in here. And then once you pull this out, this section here is the batteries. And then this section here is all the audio gear. So it's kind of nice, all packs in one bag. Nothing too crazy and overwhelming, but you've definitely got enough to shoot just about anything that comes your way. All right, so that's it for me today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at what goes in my typical gear bag for a documentary style shoot when you are solo operating. If you like this kind of content, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.